The sky over Berlin looked tired and grey that morning, the kind of grey that settles deep in your chest and breathes with you. I was on the factory floor clutching my lunch tin, waiting for the end-of-shift bell. The machines coughed and churned. Steam hissed from pipes overhead. My palms were slick, not from work but the knowledge that after today I had nothing left. They called it redundancy, they called it efficiency. All I felt was the smallness of my shoes on the oily tiles. Schmidt. Boss wants a word. France's voice barely cut through the thud of metal on metal, but it was clear enough. People glanced sideways. I nodded, jaw tight, shoulders hunched so the world might overlook me. I followed France, my boots echoing through graceless halls until we reached the office. Herr Fischer sat hunched over a pile of forms, not looking up. Schmidt, sit. He drew out my name syllable by syllable. I stayed standing. We're letting you go, company's restructuring, you'll get your last wages, 3 weeks pay, holiday owed. He slid a paper across the desk, sign at the bottom. I gripped the pen so it wouldn't betray the trembling. I asked, any chance of transfer? He didn't even blink, no. Minutes later I was back among machines, only now their rhythm seemed foreign, otherworldly. My friend Armin approached, wiping grime from his nose. You all right, Paul? His voice was low and careful. I'll manage. The words tasted sharp like aspirin ground between teeth. He slapped my shoulder. Maybe now you can write your book, eh? It was meant to be a kindness, but his lips curled at the edge, the old joke. Paul and his stories, Paul and his wild ink dreams, the others joined in. Sure, a rich writer among us boys. Save me a seat if you ever get to the TV talk shows. They laughed, filling the room with a stale warmth that left me cold. I nodded, smiled hollow-eyed, picked up my coat. Dawn painted the streets in pale blue as I walked. Ice clung to the cobbles, crunching under each step. The city was waking up to the work I no longer had. My hands ached for a cigarette, but my wallet was nearly empty. I walked past Neubauer's bakery, the old painted windows steamed with warmth, scents of crusty brat and sourdough filling the air. I imagined myself inside, thick coffee, Otto and the chessboard laughter, but I walked on stubbornly. Back in the apartment, paint peeled from the sills and the radiator coughed tired heat. I packed my things into a cheap suitcase. Work boots, overalls, the battered copy of Remarks * im Western Nichts News *, and the heap of spiral notebooks I'd hoarded for years, my stories and outlines, the embryos of a novel I'd dreamed but never dared finish aloud. The dream mocked me now, but I had nothing left to lose. In the weeks that followed, Berlin felt more foreign. I wandered streets while job applications went unanswered or brought curt refusals. I watched coins shrink in my jar, rationed bread and cigarettes. My mother called, her voice a wary drumbeat. So, Paul, any success at the job center? Not yet, Mama, the silences stretched long. Perhaps you should try the plastics factory. Uncle Eugen says they need people. I'm not going back to the line, I told her. I have something else in mind. Silence. Then weary, still with the writing, then. I could picture her shaking her head, lips compressed the way she did whenever she was disappointed. Her words echoed those of my family, my neighbors, old friends and drinking buddies. When the pressure grew unbearable, I wrote. I wrote in fits and fever, mornings in the U-Bahn, afternoons at a chipped kitchen table, evenings when hunger kept my mind sharp and alert. Scenes from my childhood bled into fiction. Hurt became prose and shame became dialogue. For months, I lived among invented worlds more real than the grimy one outside my door. The laughter still rang in my ears. I remembered birthday parties where uncles cornered me, laughing about our little novelist, and schoolmates who found my stories and passed them around, loud and braying. After Papa left, it was all they talked about, how I'd have to grow up and do a man's job, not chase clouds and ink. Even Armin, the closest thing I had to a brother, called my notebooks your secret novels. But the words came and they were all I owned. By spring, I had a completed draft, 400 pages of cramped handwriting, watermarked with coffee and sweat. I typed them out at the library, feeding coins into battered computers while teenagers watched over my shoulder. I printed the thing on stuttering machines, collated it page by aching page. Then came the rejections, one after another, emails in clipped German, not suitable, does not fit our current needs, wishing you luck elsewhere. I kept going. I rewrote again, feeling each time as if I were tearing my heart open afresh. I stopped mentioning the book to Mama, to anyone. I worked cleaning offices at night, lived on bratwurst and bitter instant coffee. It was the loneliest time of my life, but quiet pride grew in the spaces where shame had rooted. I learned to live with smallness, to cherish days when a phrase worked, a character lived on the page if only for me. A year passed. I sent the manuscript on a whim to a new publisher rumored to support outsider voices. Days blurred. I thought of giving up. I nearly did more than once. Then the phone rang one afternoon as rain hammered my window. Paul Schmidt. This is Lena Hersfeld from Verlag Zeitfenster. We read your novel. I braced for the gentle letdown. We would like to publish it if you are interested. My heart thudded, entire body electrified by hope and terror. Yes, I managed voice breaking. Yes, I thank you. She talked about contracts, about editing, about advances so modest I still needed to mop floors, but I didn't care. I gripped the phone like a lifeline, rain blurring the city outside, the world remade. Months passed. My words were shaped with Lena's sharp edits, sometimes painful, always true. The book was set for autumn with a small print run but real odd of review. They sent me proofs, a cover image, my name in bright relief. I stared at it for hours, running a thumb over ink as if it might erase the years of disbelief. My mother was the first person I called. It's happening, Mama, they're publishing the novel. A long, tight silence. That's good, Paul, I hope it works out. The hope strung worse than outright doubt. A few weeks later, Lena said, would you like to do a reading here? Local authors launch night. Bring family, friends, anyone who doubted you. I almost said no, afraid the hurt would return, afraid the room would echo with laughter as before. But something inside me, something left over from those hungry nights, insisted. The bookstore was in Kreuzberg, a bright square of light in the moody dusk, lined with concrete and tram bells. The inside was all mismatched chairs, book towers, raw shelves. I saw Lena straight-backed beside a portable lectern, a crowd gathering, the smell of cheap wine and old paper thick in the air. They came, not all but some. My mother stoic beside her friend Ilse, arm in, arms folded, making a joke about fancy literati to anyone listening. Even Herr Fischer, the factory supervisor, appeared at the back like a muted spectre, his face carefully blank. I looked out at them over the pages. It felt surreal, like a fever dream finally breaking. I started to read. My voice trembled at first. I read about factories, January snow, head-shaking uncles, the scold of being dismissed for wanting more. I read about courage in the face of laughter, the scraping up of pride from cold stone. As the scenes unspooled, quiet fell. The audience was spellbound, captive to the story. My mother clutched her coat so tightly the wool wrinkled. Armin's eyes slid away, but he did not laugh. People leaned forward, faces lit by words. When I finished, silence fell once again, a silence I knew well, but one that had changed. In it was awe, not mockery, and the shimmer of respect. Lena led applause, crisp and genuine. Others joined until the room filled with it, sharp and echoing, a tide washing out the memory of all those jeers and sideways looks. Herr Fischer approached after, his brow awkwardly furrowed. I didn't know you had it in you, Paul. His hand was warm, strong, more real than I'd ever felt in his office. Congratulations. Armin grinned, sheepish. Guess you're the famous one now, eh? He nudged me softer than his words, his eyes glossy. Sorry, you know. I nodded, forget it, it's done. Mama pressed my hand in hers as we left the store. I'm proud of you, Paul, her voice caught, trembling with something like regret, maybe apology. I did it for me, I said, but it wasn't true, not fully. I'd always written from hunger, for some proof I could lay at their feet. Within weeks the novel made noise. Nothing wild, it was no bestseller, but reviewers called it honest, vital. A small literary prize nomination followed. Lena brought me to another reading, then another. I signed a few pages for students, for strangers who saw themselves in my lonely Berlin. At home, the laughter had changed. My sister called, the one who once told me no one reads anymore. Now she wanted 2 signed copies for her book club. My uncle refused to meet my eyes at dinner, helped himself to second helpings in silence. I found myself walking past the factory one evening, chill autumn wind tugging at my coat. It was a place I would never belong again, yet it anchored something in me, the part that remembered old shames, old wounds. The new shift workers, young, hopeful, uncertain, eyed me as an outsider. Some recognized the face from papers, a book held clutched under an arm with the same battered cover. For months I rode a current of small successes, new doubts gathering like rain clouds. I wrote more, began a second book, never fully sure the laughter wouldn't return or the shame sneak back. But the proof was there, tangible, inked, weighty, the book itself. I held it in my hands late at night, running thumb over the cover. The smell of glue and paper was richer than any factory breakroom coffee. One winter Sunday, Lena called. The Berlin Literature Society is inviting prize nominees to a panel. They want you to speak. Your mother could come if you liked. I laughed, real laughter this time. She'll bring half the family. The audience was bigger now, a theatre humming beneath white lights. The host asked about shame, about courage. I answered, success isn't the applause. It's standing up and finishing what you have to say, even while people laugh. Later, Armin gripped my shoulder, smiling. Proud of you, Paul. Not many of us ever leave that old floor behind. I smiled back, feeling the city silent and watchful all around. On the way home, Mama linked arms with me, a gentle weight. You never really left, she whispered. She was right. In every page, every hurt turned to story Berlin lived. My shame had faded, replaced by the slow, barbed courage of enduring. I was both the mockery and the answer. And at last, for the first time, I walked home through the cold, feeling light as dawn and unafraid.